Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a closer look at the Hammerskins.
Right.
We've got some, comprehensive info here, and the idea is really to get a handle on this neo-Nazi group formed back in '88.
That's the one.
We want to pull out the key stuff, where they started, their ideology, what they actually do, and how widespread they are. But keep it clear, not get bogged down.
Makes sense. A clear picture.
Exactly. So let's start at the beginning. Where did they actually, emerge from?
Okay, so the Hammerskins started up in Dallas, Texas. That was 1988.
Dallas, okay.
But what's interesting is they weren't like brand new out of thin air. They actually grew out of a local group that already existed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, called the Confederate Hammerskins. So there was already some kind of foundation there.
Right. So building on something pre-existing. And that name, Hammerskins, it's very distinctive. There's got to be a story behind that, hasn't there?
Oh, definitely. It's not random. The name and also that logo they use, the two crossed claw hammers, red and black.
Yeah, I've seen that.
That comes directly from the movie Pink Floyd The Wall from 1982.
The movie. Wow.
Yeah, there's a fictional neo-Nazi group in the film, and that's their symbol. The kicker is, the film used it as a negative portrayal, like a warning against fascism.
So something meant as criticism gets adopted by the real thing? That's wild.
It really is. It's kind of a classic extremist tactic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Taking something meant to mock or condemn them and turning it into like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
Shows defiance.
Yeah, flipping the script completely. Did they have, like, a motto or anything?
They do. Hammerskins forever. Forever Hammerskins.
HFFH.
Exactly. HFFH for short. And they also use numbers sometimes.
838.
838.
What's that? That stands for Hail the Crosshammers. H is the 8th letter, C is the 3rd. HCH.
Oh, okay. So codes, symbols, mottos,
Right.
a whole system.
Layers of identity markers.
Okay, building on that origin story and the striking name, let's talk about what they actually believe, the core ideology. It seems obvious, but what are the fundamentals?
Well, at its heart, it's neo-Nazism. Trying to revive Nazi ideas. Right.
And definitely white supremacy, that whole dangerous belief that white people are inherently superior.
Okay.
Tied closely with white nationalism, the idea that, white people need their own separate nation or state.
An ethno-state.
Precisely. A white ethno-state. That's the ultimate goal. And flowing from that, you get intense anti-Semitism and homophobia as well. It's all part of the package.
So a really toxic mix of beliefs. With this goal of a white ethno-state, how do they actually try to, spread this stuff? How do they recruit? They're not just sitting around agreeing, presumably.
No, not at all. Their main vehicle really has been white power rock music.
Music. Interesting.
Yeah, they're heavily involved in producing and promoting it. There's a long connection with a record label called 9% Productions. It's kind of a hub for that scene.
Right.
And they also organize concerts, annual ones. The big one is called Hammerfest.
Hammerfest. Okay.
They hold it in the U.S. and also in Europe. It's actually held in memory of a member who died, Joe Rowan. He sang for a band called Nordic Thunder.
So these events, the music, it's about building community, reinforcing the ideology, giving them a cultural space.
Exactly that. Shared culture, shared identity, all wrapped up in the music and these gatherings.
Now, thinking about how they're structured, the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, call them the best organized group of their kind in the U.S.? That sounds pretty coordinated.
It does, yeah. They seem to have a level of organization. But kind of paradoxically, they actually describe themselves as leaderless.
Leaderless. How does that work then, if they're so organized?
That's the interesting question, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do you maintain coordination without a clear top-down structure? Maybe it makes them more resilient, harder to decapitate, so to speak.
Yeah, could be. Less of a single target.
Possibly. But we know they are actively recruiting. They're trying to grow.
Okay.
And here's something pretty chilling. They apparently encourage members to join the military.
What? Why?
The idea seems to be to get combat training, skills they think they'll need for a future race war.
Wow. That's taking it to another level. Really dark.
It absolutely underscores the danger. It's not just ideology. It's planning for violence.
Right. So, shifting to the digital age.
Yeah.
What about their online presence? How do they use the internet?
Well, their footprint there has changed over time. Their main website, last checked, was down.
Okay.
And they used to have Facebook groups operating under the name Crew 38. Those seem inactive now. Same for their old online forums.
Crew 38, is that like a support thing?
Yeah, that name still pops up. Apparently in Australia, there's a Crew 38 group for people who are sort of supporters, maybe not full members yet.
I see. So even if the main sites go down, the branding and the network can kind of persist in other ways?
Seems like it. They find other avenues.
Okay. And geographically, where are these guys? Is it just a U.S. problem?
Oh, no, definitely not. It's global. Back in 2018, they had reported chapters across the U.S., West, Northwest, Midland, Confederate, Northern, Eastern, sort of regional divisions,
Okay.
but internationally. Chapters reported in Canada, Brazil, the UK, Australia, New Zealand,
Oh.
Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Hungary, Austria, Sweden, Luxembourg, Switzerland, Finland, Portugal. It's a long list.
That's a significant spread.
It really is.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is these international chapters sometimes tweak the logo. They might add local flags or symbols alongside the main Hammerskins crossed hammers.
So adapting to local context, but keeping the core brand.
Exactly. Shows how these ideas can kind of morph and connect across borders.
Right. Let's move into their activities. You mentioned individual members have been involved in violence.
Yes. It's important to note the information suggests the group itself doesn't directly order specific attacks.
Okay.
But individual members, people identified as Hammerskins, have absolutely been involved in numerous violent attacks and hate crimes over the years.
Any specific examples stand out?
The most prominent and tragic example is probably Wade Michael Page.
I remember that name.
He was described as a fully patched Hammerskin,
Hmm.
a full member. He was also a musician in bands associated with the scene and Apathy, Definite Hate.
Right.
He committed the mass shooting at the Sikh temple in Wisconsin back in 2012.
Horrific. And his band had played at their events.
Reportedly, yes.
Hmm.
And Apathy had played at Hammerskin events. It really draws a stark line connecting the group's network and the potential for extreme violence from its members.
Yeah, it really brings the real-world consequences into sharp focus. Any other affiliations or major activities?
They've been linked or associated with the Rise Above Movement RAM. That's another white supremacist group.
Okay.
And historically, there was a faction called the Outlaw Hammerskins, now apparently defunct, whose members were involved in things like Nordic Fest and even planned at one point to provide security for a Ku Klux Klan event.
Shows the connections within that broader extremist world. What about that Australian chapter you mentioned?
Right, the Southern Cross Hammerskins.
Yeah.
They formed around 1993. They've been active in various cities there, often focusing their hate on Asian and Muslim communities.
And how do they recruit there?
Reports suggest they target young men, particularly at heavy metal festivals, trying to draw them in. And as we said, they have that Crew 38 support group there too.
Okay.
They've also been involved in organizing an annual concert in Melbourne, the Ian Stewart Donaldson Memorial. He was the singer for Screwdriver, a notorious white power band.
And this happens despite public opposition.
Yeah, significant public pushback, but they've persisted in trying to hold it. Shows their determination to maintain these public or semi-public displays.
It really highlights the constant tension and conflict they generate. And of course, the recent news out of Germany.
Yes, that's a really significant development. In September 2023, the German government officially banned the German chapter of the Hammerskins, outlawed them.
A government ban, that's major.
It absolutely is. It shows how seriously the threat is taken at a national level, at least in some places, and the willingness to take direct action against the group's organization.
Okay, let's just briefly touch on the group's history and evolution. Did they always call themselves Hammerskins?
Not quite. In the very early days, say 85 to 87, before the formal Dallas founding, they sometimes used names like Crosshammer Skins or Crosshammer Skinheads.
Directly from the movie reference again.
Exactly. The shift to just Hammerskins apparently came partly from influence from skinheads elsewhere, like Denver and California, who wanted to link up with what they saw as their historical ancestors in the white power movement.
I see. And have they always been unified?
No, by around 2008, reports indicated internal power struggles. Factions started emerging. Things weren't always smooth internally.
And you mentioned their website going down before.
Right. There have been periods where their online presence just vanished. Their main site and forums went dark around 2001. Then Tom Metzger, a prominent figure in the wider movement, even announced that Hammerskin Nation was basically finished.
But clearly they weren't.
Clearly not. They kept reappearing, launching new websites or forums at different times. Shows a certain resilience, or maybe just an ebb and flow. Adaptability.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. What are the key takeaways here? We're talking about a neo-Nazi group, the Hammerskins, started in the late 80s.
Driven by white supremacy, white nationalism.
Right. They use white power music heavily for recruitment and community building.
Definitely. And despite calling themselves leaderless, They've shown real organizational capacity and built a global network.
A network with chapters all over the world, and crucially, individual members have been linked to serious violence, like the Wisconsin temple shooting.
Yes, underscoring the real danger. And their core symbol, the crossed hammers, ironically comes from Pink Floyd The Wall, something meant to critique fascism.
Which is just bizarre when you think about it.
It truly is. Their continued existence, the global spread, and that recent ban in Germany, it all shows they're still a factor and that authorities are actively trying to counter them.
Yeah. You know, this whole deep dive, it really paints a picture of how these damaging ideologies operate, doesn't it? How they adapt, how they spread, even how they twist things from popular culture. That appropriation of the Pink Floyd symbol is quite something. So, a final thought maybe for our listeners. Considering this blend, taking a pop culture image, originally anti-fascist, and welding it to this deeply hateful ideology, what does that tell us about how extremism moves and grows today? And maybe more importantly, what does it mean for how we try to understand and push back against these groups?
Hmm, that's a heavy question. Definitely something worth mulling over, how symbols get captured and repurposed, and how these groups navigate the modern world.
Exactly. Something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.